Hi, everybody. Welcome to another version of the Bruce Singer podcast. Actually, I'm very proud to mention this is actually a special podcast series we're doing with the partnering with the organization XPRIZE, and we'll tell you all about it. This is actually the first podcast in this series, which will be maybe 8 or 9 or 10 podcasts. We're not sure yet, and it's really exciting what they're doing. So I met Jordan a little while back at an event, and we followed up a few times, and we're here. And it's pretty cool. And thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Andrew. I'll get into some of the details just a moment. So first, I want to introduce the podcast series. Our focus is really the food ecosystem, things like that, to inspire, to bring valuable information, valuable content, storytelling. And this podcast is no exception. You hear about what the XPRIZE organization is doing, which is incredible. And myself, I'm Bruce Singer. I'm the CEO and founder of Canada CFOs, which provides fractional CFOs in these companies, these emerging companies, these growing companies, again, in the food space, the wellness space, and across the food ecosystem. This is really exciting. So again, one other thing too about XPRIZE, I'm going to introduce Andrew and Jordan in a minute. It is a $15 million total prize, which is pretty, I have to admit, I've done some podcasts. This is the biggest one we've done so far. And I think it's incredible. And they're going to tell you so much. You're going to learn. I guarantee you will get inspired today, and you will learn so much today in this podcast. So before you get into it, Andrew and Jordan, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you, Bruce. Great to be here.
Super. So we're going to talk about Jordan in a minute. Jordan is the ecosystem and partnership manager of XPRIZE. In terms of the food, the Feed the Next Billion. I've got it correctly, right? Feed the Next Billion.
That's right. Yep, that's right, Bruce.
And I'll talk about it. And he's very passionate about food innovation and our food system. That's what he's all about, really. And I guess you have to be if you're going to work for XPRIZE, which is a philanthropic organization. And he's an avid traveler. And by the way, his dog is sitting next to him. He fed him so the dog doesn't bark. But then I told him it's okay if the dog barks, no problem. we don't edit these podcasts. Okay, so that's cool. That's right. Okay, so Jordan Giali, and then we have Andrew Tauhert. Okay, I'll tell you about Andrew. Andrew is the Chief Impact Officer at XPRIZE. He's an engineer by background, and there is a Canadian connection. He worked at Nortel for many years before some of the issues, and he's really a tech savvy, a tech leader in multiple tech industries, both large and small, some exits, and that's his background. Tremendous background. And eventually he made his way to the organization. Again, the passion shows its light and makes its way to this organization. So I thank you both for coming on the podcast. And perhaps we can start by talking about what exactly is XPRIZE.
I can give you a bit of background.
Please.
So XPRIZE, our mission is to incentivize innovators around the world to attack some really grand challenges that we either see not being addressed or not being addressed fast enough. We're almost 30 years old. We were launched 29 years ago. First prize was around unlocking a commercial space industry. That was the Ansari X Prize. And in the last 29 years since, we've exercised prizes across 7 different domains that we operate. Food, water, and waste being one that Jordan can speak to, the prize that's active there, but also health, climate and energy, biodiversity and conservation, space exploration, deep tech and quantum, and learning and society. We've had 27 prizes launched through those years, over 300 million worth of prize purses across those prizes. Some as big as the current carbon removal prize, which was sponsored by the Elon Musk Foundation, is $100 million purse. Wow. And then down. We actually have another 300 million worth of prizes in the queue. But it's a model that a model for impact that we've refined over those many years, where by putting that purse out there, we can attract hundreds or thousands of innovators to focus on it. And then drive real world impact according to whichever problem that we're attacking.
That's incredible. That's just that alone is compelling. It's very exciting. It's very compelling. So that's the overall XPRIZE. Then we move to what you call, there's different domains. Is that how that's how it works? And today we're going to talk. There's many domains. So there's some we're going to focus on the domain. It's food and water. Is that
Food, water, and waste. Yeah.
Food, water, and waste. So Jordan, take us through that. Take us through more specifically about the food, water, and waste program.
Yeah, happy to, Bruce. So the food, water, waste domain is focused on exactly what it sounds like: food challenges, water challenges, and packaging and waste challenges related to food and water. And currently, XPRIZE has one active competition under that domain, Feed the Next Billion. That's the one that I spend most of my time on these days. And this competition is, as you said at the intro of this show, it has a $15 million prize purse to go to the innovators that can develop the best new food products in the alternative meat space. So specifically, we're focused on chicken and fish fillets. I emphasize fillets because these are structured alternative products. They're not the unstructured kind of beef patties that you can find in your typical grocery store. It's sort of the next generation of food products that we're hoping to incentivize. The basic idea is to have innovators create these alternative products that basically mimic what your average consumer can find in your grocery store down the street. So if it's chicken breast fillet or a chicken breast product or a fish fillet product, we wanted to mimic those products, those conventional products, in terms of taste, nutrition, cost and affordability, and of course the environmental impact that it has on the environment. So all the things that matter most to consumers, we want to replicate that and get it from out of the R&D phase, if you will, the product development phase, and get it ready to scale and commercialize globally.
Yeah, well, that's the big challenge, is getting scaling globally.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to come back to XPRIZE for a minute. So we got some overview, but this is all about people. And one thing I'm curious about is both of you. How did you get into this? You know, like when you there's you. I'd love to hear spend a few minutes, each of you. I'd love to hear your personal story, because when you were, well, in one case, there probably wasn't even XPRIZE when you started, you know, I mean, in your journey, right? Or it's a long time, right? So let's start with Andrew. Can you share your, briefly, just share your journey, how you got, how'd you get to XPRIZE? What's the story?
As you noted, the first part of my career was around tech, both big company and small company. So here was largely around innovating new types of tech started out in communications, as you mentioned, and then it went on to things like Internet of Things. But it's all about that, you know, using tech to solve specific problems. I also spent that career going from big companies that were doing things like acquiring smaller companies to the small companies themselves and getting investment for them and what have you. So it's at that intersection of innovation and capital and entrepreneurship. And so when I then had an exit out of my last company, I looked at the XPRIZE model, and I happened to be at the time the COO for our current XPRIZE CEO. And I was really attracted to the model, because the model of XPRIZE is one about leveraging technology innovation, leveraging entrepreneurship, but in a different type of business model that has huge impact. So when I get to that phase of my life where I care, it's important to make sure I'm working towards a mission, then I can leverage all of that experience of the past to do it. So I came to XPRIZE to help launch a certain number of programs, but since then I've had the luxury of getting to work across all of our programs, all of those domains, getting those prizes funded, getting them supported, building an ecosystem around them, and most importantly, measuring the impact that we have on the world and the foundation. I ran an impact study last year, which was the first time we ever did it, and we actually calculated that for every dollar of prize purse, of which we've had over 300 million in the past, we are able to leverage that over 33 times in impact based on, and that's impact as it relates to driving investment, to driving awareness, to pure innovation, and to validation. So very proud of that number, and it's a model that's proven itself, and one that keeps us all at XPRIZE doing what we do.
I'm curious about something. Is this the most unique, or in terms of the world, is this like the Rolls Royce of prize innovation. Is that the right word to use? I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely are that the biggest platform and I think most successful platform around incentive competitions. But more than that, actually, we have many people that look at XPRIZE and say they don't even see it as philanthropy, because although we are a nonprofit, and although we are structured as a 501c3, they see immense value that we actually create, which we do.
Absolutely.
The teams that are attracted to our prizes, the leverage that we're able to get out of those prize purses, create immense value, but of course do it according to our mission and in the areas we solve problems. So I think that model and the scale with which we operate makes us very unique as it relates to how philanthropy is addressing problems.
Congratulations. So let's go to Jordan. So I'd love to hear your story. Since we spoke so much, we never had a chance to share. I never heard your story. I just heard you're the manager, and we called each other. So how did it start out? You're in school, and take us through where you're at.
Yeah, happy to. So I studied economics in school, and then after graduating, I went into the field of applied economics as an industry consultant. I worked for a consulting firm here in Los Angeles, where I'm from, and basically worked my way up there to managing a team of analysts and overseeing the entire economic and fiscal and social impact practice area for the firm. So we were doing a lot of different analyses and reports for several industries, including like real estate and education, a lot of technology folks as well, and venture capital firms. So I did that for close to 4 years, and then I was ready for something new. And it was around that time that I had discovered XPRIZE. And one of the things that I loved about being a consultant was getting to sort of dig into the different like technology trends for these venture firms, and just kind of keeping up to speed on the latest innovations in a variety of fields. And so I discovered XPRIZE, and honestly, very similar to what Andrew was just saying, I was struck by the model that they had created and this innovation through competition structure that was new to me, and it was intriguing, and it was something that I wanted to explore more, because of course you get the money if and when you develop the technology or the innovation, and it's not given out until that point. Venture capital, traditional venture is, you get the money up front, and so it's not guaranteed that the tech does get invented. So that really drew me in, and so I made a transition to XPRIZE in their research and design department, and used sort of my analytic and consulting skills that I developed there to help do the research that provides the sort of theoretical basis for all the challenges and competitions that we produce. And then from there, I was able to transition into more of a program management operational role, which is what I'm doing now. And I love it. I work under the food domain, as you said earlier, and I secretly always wanted to transition into that part of our work, because I have always been interested in nutrition and food and wellness and those sorts of things. So I'm very happy in it now, and just love the work. It's just surrounded by awesome, smart, hardworking, good people. So it's a great place, and here I am now.
That's awesome. So let's get into some of the intricacies. And this is a loaded question. There's organization putting it all together. Okay, how does this all happen? Like put it all together. How do you get people involved? Like organizations involved, and all the people. Like there's a journey that takes place. It's now down to six finalists now. Is it five?
That's right. 6 finalists in the Feed the Next Billion competition, right?
And this is not a 1 week scenario. It started a year ago or so. It's a 1 year. Is it a 1 year process, or?
It's actually more of a 4 year process. So we started, the prize launched in December 2020. So we've been going since then, and it's set to conclude next summer in around July, August 2024. So altogether, it's about 4 years.
We're down to the final strokes here. So I love to chat just about how do you put and using the food as an example, because because there's lots of different examples. How does it come all together? Like the judges, what turns the crank, the trends. Can you run with this? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen, because I'm really curious how this thing totally comes together, and all the organizations.
I can first speak to how the front end of the process works, and then maybe hand it the Jordan to then speak to, and very specifically, the Feed the Next Billion prize. So they say that, if XPRIZE's first great strength is the largest incentive platform, competition platform out there, then probably our second best is our power to convene. And we convene multidiscipline individuals and organizations to achieve our work. So at the front end of our process, we actually convene what we call brain trusts, which are leading experts, academics, industry, government, policy, et cetera, at the front of our process to help us ideate and define where we're going to focus next, like what's the next set of prizes. And we have to pick carefully. We only run a handful of prizes at any one moment in time, and they're very large. So we want to pick the ones that are going to have the most impact. Then that transition, once we define, here's a prize we want to launch, then our transitions to engaging either foundations, high net worth individuals like the Elon Musk of the world, or corporates who sponsor our work. And then we get sponsorship for these prizes, who fund the prize person and the prize operations. And that's a mixture of all different types of groups and organizations. And it's not just philanthropy. Many times it's for-profit corporations who have defined their mission to work on some of the areas that we address. Once we have that staffed or supported, we build out the staff for that prize, and then we go into launching it. And then maybe I'll hand it to Jordan to speak to, say, take the Feed prize, how the rest of that process has worked in that context.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, once the process that Andrew just touched on concludes, we go into a more operational phase that we call it XPRIZE. And this is where we onboard the big stakeholders involved in every competition. And I can talk how it applies specifically to Feed, but there are the sponsors, as Andrew touched on. They fund the prize and provide a lot of support in non-monetary terms as well. Feed the Next Billion has actually 3 sponsors: Aspire, which is part of the research wing of the government of Abu Dhabi. There's also the Tony Robbins Foundation, and then there's a third donor who wishes to remain anonymous at this point. But so that's for Feed the Next Billion specifically. The next kind of big group that we convene at this point in the initial phases of operations are the judging panel. And this is a crucial group of experts in whatever industry the prize operates in. So for Feed, these tend to be food technology experts, food scientists, manufacturing distribution experts, and so forth. They are the ones that make the ultimate decision on who is able to enter the prize, who gets selected from that registration phase, who advances in the competition, and then who ultimately wins the grand prize awards at the end. So they're crucial. Another crucial group that we convene is we call the advisory board, and every competition has its own advisory board, similar to the judging panel in that they are industry experts, but they don't have hard decision-making power like the judges do. They're more of a strategic advisor role to XPRIZE in the long-term vision of the competition. They help us connect individuals who need to be involved in the competition that can help us succeed and so forth. So we meet with them on a regular basis to seek their advice on those sorts of topics. The other big group, I would say, are the different partnerships and members of the broader ecosystem that we rely on to operate the competition. So we truly could not operate our work without these partners. And there's several different kinds. I won't go into all of them, but they might be people that, for example, with Feed the Next Billion, testing partnerships. So with food development, there's always a lot of tests required. You have to test for nutrition, you have to test for structure, and so forth. So those are partnerships we would form. We might form other partnerships with organizations and individuals that can help amplify the mission of the competition, that can help us with thought leadership, get the word out there to help educate consumers about these new products, and so forth. And then there are other things. So we're talking about entrepreneurship that requires money, and a lot of times we help connect the innovators with the investment community. So XPRIZE does offer substantial prize purses, like the $100 million Elon Musk prize, the $15 million Feed the Next Billion prize. That is sort of, we view it almost as like the starter capital, but we do encourage and help support the innovators to connect with other entrepreneurs to continue funneling investment into the ecosystem and into these companies specifically. So those are the big groups, I would say. And then, of course, there are the innovators themselves, and they come from all around the world. When we launched Feed the Next Billion, I think we had over 60 different countries represented in the applicant pool. Now, as you said, Bruce, we're down to 6 finalist teams. They all come from 6 different countries around the world. I think every continent has been represented at some point. So we're very proud of the global diversity that is represented, not just in feed, but across all of our competitions and domains.
I'm going to give a plug here for Canada. Okay, one of them
Let's go Canada.
Canadian, because that is one heck of an accomplishment. How many applicants?
That's right.
You said from 60. What are there? Thousands of applicants? Thousands? 10,000?
So it's always different.
Yeah.
It's always different, of course, for each domain prize. For Feed the Next Billion, we had over 350 or so, I'd say.
Wow.
And then that's the way that this competition specifically was structured. About 30 semifinalist teams were selected from that registration phase. And then now we're in the third and final finalist round. There are 6 teams, as we said. So it went down from, But I think the Elon Musk prize had several thousands of applications at the high end. So
it is probably worth noting, though, that of course, the way we have impact on the world is what is largely not just the prize itself, but what those teams go on to do after the prize.
Correct.
So a lot of that team support that Jordan mentioned of connecting them with capital, with mentorship, with other organizations that could leverage and use their products. This is something that continues well after the prize is over. And the more we can make those connections, the greater impact we have. And we frankly don't just do it for the winners either. Any team that's made it up to, say, past the semifinals has been judged, has been tested, has proven that they can do real work in this space. So our mission is to connect them with the organizations, the buyers, the investors, the supporters, the mentors that would help them on that journey after the prize is over.
This is like Dragon's Den. What's the show? Shark Tank on Shark Tank Beyond. Because
you don't have to give away a piece of your company to compete either.
No, but you're not just cutting a check. That's not the objective of this organization.
No, absolutely.
Really,
frankly,
support them. My impression, it's to support and make sure they're successful long term and accomplishing the objective, which what the prize was supposed to be, is making
from a startup. From a startup's perspective, most of these startups are using the prize as a platform on their commercial journey. If they win the prize in parallel, great. But for example, once you've gone past this round of testing or this round of testing, you've now had a technical due diligence done on your company. You now have a badge that you can go take back to your existing or new investors. You're making connections with other folks who are going to join your startup. Many of our teams actually join each other and help them on their commercial journey. And so every team who has those aspirations towards that commercial success, they're looking at the platform as a whole, and maybe they could also win the final money as well.
So I'm curious, if I can just get back to the food thing. One thing I'm very curious about is why those 6 or why those 30? Like, what's the trend? What was the trend? There's got to be a common theme here that really that ties into, because there's there's thousands and thousands out there of innovators in the food space. Why that? Why them? Like, what was that's one question. I have a second. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could start there. So the mission of the prize, as we said, is to develop those alternative chicken and fish products that mimic the conventional counterparts. It sounds simple and easy. It's actually not. From a scientific and technical perspective, it's incredibly difficult to do and pull off. And so the companies that applied, the companies that were down selected and ultimately are in the finals now, are the top innovators in this emerging and new field of alternative protein and meat development. They represent a variety of different technologies. It's not as clear cut as what I'm about to frame it up as, but you can think of them in kind of like 3 big buckets, where there's the plant-based meat products, which many people are familiar with. There are cell-based or cultivated meat products, which are probably the most newest thing to consumers and customers. And that's where you basically take a cell sample line from an animal and you cultivate those cells in a laboratory environment, and that ultimately turns into a meat product. I'm very much simplifying that, but the third big category is fermentation derived,
Yeah,
which fermentation is
yeah.
an ancient technology, but using those microbes to develop the proteins that get harvested. In reality, the companies that we've seen are using sort of a hybrid approach of at least a couple of these technologies. But they basically went through a very rigorous down selection process that XPRIZE designs. And then we sort of step back and give that to the judging panel that I said, which is independent, to use and evaluate the submissions and pick the best of the best. And so I can talk a little bit more about what those specific criteria are. They basically relate to all the things that consumers and customers care about the most when they're purchasing meat and making decisions on whether or not to put aside that conventional piece of chicken and opt for the alternative approach. So one, most importantly, I would say, is taste and the sensory properties of the meat. So it has to taste good, smell good, feel the mouth feel, as sensory scientists call. All those things matter, and those are the things that the judging panel evaluates in a live taste testing environment, which we concluded earlier this year. The judges did convene in a central location and tested the products physically. So they evaluate the products in that way. Another is the cost and like scalability of it. So of course, none of this matters if the products that get developed can't be reached at grocery stores or restaurants. And so we really look at that to make sure that these companies are on a path towards scalability and profitability and affordability compared to the conventional counterparts. Another is the nutrition. So we analyze the nutritional facts panel to make sure it's equivalent to the conventional counterpart. We also look at, we call it versatility, but it's basically the consumer being able to use the products in a way that you'd be able to use traditionally. So if you want to use the alternative chicken product, for example, in a stir fry dish or a curry or something like that, it has to mimic the properties of the conventional chicken, which is something that's actually not present in a lot of products on the grocery store shelves today. And then there's also the environmental sustainability component, which of course is crucial. We could talk about this for 10 podcasts, but the environmental degradation that the current meat system causes on land use and water usage, energy, and so forth, and greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change, all those metrics will be analyzed in a life cycle assessment.
Wow.
And compared to basically the same life cycle assessment for the conventional counterparts, and basically the products have to not mimic them there, but significantly reduce those metrics in that way. And then there's the food safety component, lastly, of course, which everybody wants to safe food. So we check for those. We do the microbiological testing and so forth to make sure it's safe to consume.
Well, interesting. A lot of people would say, well, why don't we just eat regular meat? Why we? But that's a whole other long discussion. This has to do with food security, the food system. There's too many people. There's not enough people in the world. There's that's another podcast, you know. But that's what the naysayers.
Exactly.
Why don't we just make more chickens?
That's right. But it's important.
It's not that simple. It's not that simple.
It's not that simple. You're right. And it is.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come back for another episode, to unpack that. But yeah, that is the theoretical basis for this competition specifically, is that growing global demand for protein. People are increasing their incomes around the world, which, you know, the propensity to consume more animal meat goes up. So we want to meet that demand, satisfy it in a more efficient and environmentally friendly way.
Okay, so the food, back to the food thing, the competition for that is closed.
That's right. It's still in operation. It's in the finals round, but we're no longer accepting applications at this point because it's so close to the end.
So a couple of questions here. Because it's to the end, it's coming up next. The final is next summer. So
yes,
is there an opportunity for anyone to get involved? Is there, what happens with these 6 finalists from today to, do they just sit around and wait, or is there things going on? I suspect there's stuff happening. You know what I mean? Do they sit and wait?
There certainly is. There certainly is. Yeah, and I'm happy to touch on that.
And the third question is, when's the next? We don't know. I guess you don't know the next one. Or if someone wants to stay in tune, to, geez, I want to get involved. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a team. There's a few questions in there that I wanted to just lay out. Yeah.
Yeah. So real quickly, the teams are busy at work right now, although there are no specific activities happening at the moment for the competition. They are deep in that product development phase. And I would say that, yeah, once the prize concludes next summer, as you said, Bruce, this is really the first step in a much larger journey that we are going towards as a global community, towards transforming that global food system. And XPRIZE sort of use it in a way, you can think of it as like the R&D phase, that product development phase. Once we get the products developed, those innovations into the world, as Andrew was touching on, we rely on that entire ecosystem of different stakeholders to help scale it and get it globally out there. I would say specifically for Feed the Next Billion, ways that people can get involved at this point is we are, as we keep saying, there is that finalist event taking place next summer. It will be the ultimate test, you can think of it as, for these products. And we are in need of new partners to help us get to that point. So we're looking for people in the culinary space, because there will be a cooking component to it. So if you know any chefs or culinary experts, we'd love to please reach out to us. Also, people that specialize in sensory analysis, that's a big component of this next milestone. And then if you are interested at all in partnering with the innovators and entrepreneurs in the competition, and you work in manufacturing or distribution or investment and anything related to scaling the product, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with you and help connect you to those innovators. And then maybe Andrew can talk more from the foundation level outside of the food domain, if there are other ways to connect there.
Please.
Happy to add that. So first off, everything Jordan said as far as helping those teams applies to all of our prizes and all of our teams. So we're always connecting to not just the prizes that we're running today, but those that competed on past prizes. We call that our alumni network. So if any of those are of interest to connect with, you can use XPRIZE as that connector. Secondly is what's coming. We did just on Earth Day, or around Earth Day this year, launch our wildfire prize, which is all about detection and suppression of wildfires using technology that's not really being used today for that. That is actually still both open for registration. Registration closes, I think, at the end of this month. But also looking for some additional funding for that. So if there's interest to sponsor that, we'd love to have that. Then in the queue, we have a prize around water scarcity coming, a prize around health and longevity, one around coral restoration, one of the main ones we're trying to get fundraised for right now, and then some around energy use of energy transitions and the applications of quantum technology for good. All these, again, need either thought leadership, sponsorship, organizations to sponsor them, partners who would then support them, and then, of course, innovators who might have some or all of the solution to address those.
Because the health one, there could be some crossover too. Like, I don't know the intricacies, but sometimes I call it health and wellness. There are crossovers with a lot of these things. So I think this is very, very inspiring. We're coming to the end of the podcast. We can talk for hours and hours and hours. And this has been very, very inspiring. And look, I thank you from the world for what XPRIZE is doing to innovate and putting this all together. This is not an easy task to run and maintain this kind of organization. I mean, it's established the infrastructure, but this is not. You got to be very passionate and put this all together. And it's really like, I have a quick question to ask you. So while they're waiting for the summer, have they been partially funded? I'm just curious, because they're still doing stuff. Are these companies get partially funded until because if they're developing and doing stuff, right, R&D, do you release any money? Is that how it works? Sure.
So
I'm just curious.
Yeah, so most XPRIZE competitions, this one in particular, has what we call milestone awards. So part of that larger prize purse does get distributed along the way when they hit certain milestones. And so they have received some funding from XPRIZE, but I would say the vast majority of teams that have competed, including the finalist teams at this point, have received outside funding in some form. And yeah, like we said, that we encourage that and try to foster that for these competitions, for the alumni teams, as well, as Andrew said. So
yeah,
so much so we'll even use our network to create events for them, where like investor events where they can meet with their next set of investors to help them on that. And just to be clear, XPRIZE does not invest in the teams directly. We're just making that connection and then hoping that that helps them grow and make it.
When you get to the finalists, is that something that's broadcasted or virtually shown, or you attend? Is that kind of thing that takes place, or not really? Like the final event, is it a virtual event? If I want to see it, can I watch it, or it doesn't work, or there's not such a?
So I feel like every answer to these great questions is like, it depends. Certain domains and prizes will have an in-person or virtually streamed component. We just wrapped up the avatar competition, and that was open to the public. We hosted that event here in Long Beach, California.
Got it.
So for Feed the Next Billion, we're exploring different options for how to involve the public. There will be a taste testing component, which I can hopefully share more details about later. But we do try to share that with the world as much as possible, as much as makes sense for the given, program.
Good. Well, I'm gonna shush up now, because my podcast is supposed to be 20-25 minutes, not more than 30. But I tell you, I can keep going. Anyways, a couple of things. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to the next XPRIZE podcast as well. And also on the podcast, we're going to show links to you and Andrew, Jordan and Andrew, and show links to XPRIZE so people can tap in. They can get access to the website, and everything's there, and they can connect, where they can connect. Before final, just some final words. And I really thank you so much for doing this. Is there anything else that should be mentioned that we didn't mention that you think is important to mention before we end off?
I would just remind everybody that we are a platform for helping these teams and these programs. So if to your audience, if there's any way they would like to get involved, please reach out, and because we've got a different way for everybody to engage with our work. That's incredible. Well, thank you so much. And everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next podcast and the next XPRIZE podcast. Take care. Thank you so much. Very much.